Hello and welcome to PM Express. My name is Nana Ansakwa. You will know why I am laughing. The debate has already even started before the camera started rolling, and I'm sure we're going to have an exciting debate. Last week, the media was abuzz with the news that teacher trainees in St. Monica's College were facing an embargo on writing their final exam. Civil society and human rights groups whipped up a mad frenzy, with some offering to sue the GES on behalf of the affected students. Their crime? The students were pregnant. Let's look at the issue critically and ask ourselves some hard questions. Should pregnant women in teacher training school, mostly adults, really be disallowed to write final exams or even suspended from schools? More often than not, these pregnant women are actually suspended on the grounds of indiscipline, so as to deter other students from becoming pregnant. Nobody is against punitive or reformative measures taken by school authorities to install discipline, but what has indiscipline got to do with a married woman who is pregnant? The GES realized that many of the students are adults, some lawfully married, who are entitled to the right of pregnancy. With me in the studio to discuss this, from my far left is Mr. Isaac Annan, Deputy Director of Shiraj. Welcome, Isaac. And then to my left is Mr. Charles Chega, Deputy Director GES, Deputy Director General GES. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And then later on, we'll go on the phone and then we'll speak to Bernice Sam, who's Executive Director of WILDAF, and I'm sure she'll have a lot to say about this. But I want to start with Charles to set the premises. First of all, I want to find out, is this a law that we inherited from the colonial masters, or is it a law that us Ghanaians sat down and said, let us put this in the code of ethics of teacher training schools, which is now College of Education? Once upon a time, they were called teacher training schools. Yeah. Now they're called College of Education. So, Charles, is this the law that we inherited? Is it a law that we came up with? And if that's, how far back?
Well, it is actually, it's difficult to say, but if you consider education as an inheritance for Ghanaians, I mean, in terms of the type of education we are running now, as one that we adopted, then you would say that we adopted all of it plus the code of ethics that came with that kind of education. And the underlying issue around that type of education that was run was essentially one that had issues around ethics and morality being very, very critical in terms of how the education was delivered and how the beneficiaries in that whole process would have to conduct themselves. So yes, simply we inherited it, and I think generally as Ghanaians we have come to tacitly accept that certain ethics and morality issues are permissible, and that they form some standard behavior that we should conform to when we apply them, and that's it.
I'm talking about this specific code that says that if you're training to be a teacher and you find yourself pregnant, you need to be excluded for a year. Some of the reasons that go and get better antenatal care and then reapply after the year. That phrase, did we write it, or was it written for us as we inherited the teacher training schools?
Well, I think the latter part of it is not what is written. The latter part of it is the explanation that gives credence to the action that is taken.
Okay. But the former part, did we put it in?
The former part is put there.
By Ghanaians?
By Ghanaians. Once you get pregnant, then you would be removed from the institution so that you can, then the other arguments come there. But the point is that you are not dismissed, you are made to reapply. And
so before I then come to teacher training school, am I handed over a prospectus that clearly tells me that, look, you cannot get pregnant?
Yes, I think they all have the regulations, and they know. Everybody in a college of education knows the rules and regulations, and they are expected to abide by them.
So, well, Isaac, I come to the school and I've been told that, well, don't find yourself pregnant because you're in the school, and you sign to it, and you get horny along the line and get yourself pregnant. Well, how then do you turn around and say, now these rules are not fair because I'm going to change the rules?
Thanks to your view. Just to get back to Charles and his intervention, I think it was quite clear that Charles traced the historical context, the evolution of the code of conduct. And as he rightly put it, it's within a certain social, political, and economic milieu. And I think issue of ethics, morality, transcends all generations and epochs. But like saying, maybe at that time, we all felt that there must be discipline. Even as of now, we feel that there should be discipline. But the question that arises is that society is dynamic. Society is growing. All these things that have been done are well-intentioned, and they are aimed at putting order and give some bit of discipline in a particular setting or community. But as I indicate, if society grows and it's so clear that as an adult I come to a community or we find ourselves in an enclosure, it is very, very important that as we obey the rules or the norms, it's also very important for us to know that these norms are driven by certain societal norms and laws, which we've all have subscribed to or signed on to. And these codes or norms must be consistent with that existing norm or law or code of conduct which we have signed up. You may call it law, you may call it moral norms. So at any given point in time, society accepts or sign on to particular code of behavior. And that code of behavior must be very, very consistent with what the general society. I don't want to go into the area of the law, the constitution, and what have you. So it's tracing the historical context. Have we moved on? Are these code of conduct or norms, various rules which are made for us to regulate it? You've signed on. But after signing on, the power imbalance. You come to a school, they say sign on. Lawyers normally will talk about what we call a standard contract. When you go for a loan, you don't dictate the terms. They've told you either you take it or leave it. But you are in a position not to, vary the terms. But here is a case, in this case, it is possible that we can vary the terms based on the general laws that we have regulating the Constitution of Ghana. And this is the context in which we at charge would like to look at these issues without trying to maybe rock the boat, because we know that there's the need for order and the moral integrity of institutions and the people who come into those institutions to be preserved.
Charles, you see, I've heard so many analogies, maybe before the cameras came on. If I wanted to be a lawyer, whether I wanted or not, I have to wear a wig. If I'm going to sign a loan, I don't dictate what rules that you give me. But this instant is a natural biological phenomenon in an adult female. Can we do the same comparison? This is an adult female, probably married, that engages in sex and probably even wants to start a family. Can we still say that, because lawyers are supposed to wear a wig, in your case you're also supposed to do the same? Can we do that?
Yeah, well, the context in which that analogy was made was within the framework of institutional rules. Yeah. For example, you have professional ethics, and the example with the lawyers is that you can't be a lawyer and go to court without wearing a wig. It's a code of appearance.
Yes.
You have no choice. You're signed to it, whether it's a standard code or it is imposed. Now, so in every institution there are rules and regulations. You go to the army, it's there. Let me just digress and say recently there was a part hullabaloo about pregnancy. When it came into the papers sometime, I'm not too sure, it says a police trainee was pregnant and even had a baby, all of that, Now, it is within that same context. If a police trainee gets pregnant, so what? If institutional rules and regulations do not matter. So institutional rules and regulations that govern the specific professions
may
are
I
very,
just,
very
may
important.
I just interject here?
Yeah.
You see, if I was training to be a teacher,
Yeah.
and I was training to be a police, the police demand me jump over hurdles and crawl in mud, and so therefore if I'm pregnant, it might slow me down. But if I was training to be a teacher, I'm more sat down, relaxed, you know, receiving. So the demand may be different, so that if I was pregnant as a teacher, it wouldn't hinder me as much as pregnant in the services. I don't know, I'm just...
Yes, I'm very happy, because I remember a doctor asking a husband who was trying to create problems for his wife that, have you ever been pregnant before? And I mean, it's difficult for both of us to actually talk about the issue of pregnancy, but pregnancy in whatever situation, from what I understand, doesn't come easy. Now, if you're training to become a teacher, there are so many things that you have to do. You may not jump over stakes and over ropes, but there's a lot of academic things that you have to do. There are other non-academic activities, including even jumping over ropes, as part of preparing you for physical education. So it's not a simple matter of sitting behind a desk all day long. And there are other forms of activities that you do. Now, so when it comes to the institutional rules and regulations, one expects that once you want to go into a profession and enter an institution of training, you want to go by the rules that have been set up by that particular institution. And it's important to note that the institution doesn't say that do not get pregnant. No, it doesn't. It says that in the unlikely events that you get pregnant, you may have to leave because we think that you would not be in the position to cope with the kinds of things that will happen. But again, if you go into the manual, it says you should reapply and come back to school. And I guess that when you look at it in that sense, there is a certain sense of order and sequencing in this whole process.
Yes. I mean, Isaac, it's my human rights being infringed upon.
Definitely. The whole question has to do with reproductive rights. Because we are all saying, who determines when to be pregnant or when not to be pregnant? You only, for purposes of planning your life, maybe some of us at a certain level want to plan our life. Oh, I want to sequence my childbearing, around these ages and what have you. But what we are saying that it doesn't lie in anybody's mouth to determine my circumstance if I'm pregnant, I'm a man, or if a person is pregnant. Because at any point in time, we are saying that that kind of situation does not impair you in any way whatsoever. Though there are biological aspects to it. Like Charles is saying, who determines whether your capability rate? Does it mean a pregnant person cannot write an exam and excel? Or can a pregnant woman not be able to do what ordinarily people do? Then you are entering into the realms of discriminatory practices. Because that particular circumstance or situation the person finds himself does not, depart from his or a natural being. The only thing is that given the position or the circumstance she finds herself, there will be a few itches here and there, but she remains the same person that she is. Otherwise, what Charles is saying is that, we determine for you that you are not able to do this, and because of that, go and sit down and come back later. And we are saying that that is discriminatory, and you are more or less determining based on what you may see as reasonable for the person. And it is not correct, because you may not be able to determine the reasonableness or the lawful, the justness of whatever the person is supposed to be doing. And so that is the context in which we
I'll
say
pick on reasonable. Charles, you see, with regards to reasonable, at St. Monica's, they had 2 weeks to write an exam. I have a press release here. This is from Agogo, training college, and they have 1 month to write the exam, and they're being asked to be excluded. After 1 month, how many ropes would they jump over in 1 month so that they have to? If they got, let's say, a year left or maybe 2 years left to finish, and then they got pregnant, then maybe go and finish it. But 2 weeks and 1 month, then it becomes a bit personal. I don't know.
Before Charles comes, if I can just give a pointer. You see, everybody operating in this kind of scheme is supposed to be controlled by the primary law of the land, the Constitution. Charles, myself, we are public servants. That school the head of the institution is a public officer. And there is a constitutional injunction on that person to act fairly, reasonably to all manner of persons, including those that he or she is supervising. So in this context, like you have posed a question, 2 weeks to exams, is it reasonable to exclude somebody? Is it just to exclude somebody from writing an exam? And that is where the Constitution clearly states that as a public officer, you must act within a reasonable context so that at any given time you can defend your action. And I continue to say that by excluding that person within that 2 weeks time frame amounts to maybe unfairness and unreasonable exercise of one's administrative power.
Charles, let me hear you take it.
Yeah, again, it's a bit, it's difficult to begin to look at all of this within the context that we are discussing it. I mean, if you are looking at the situation as is, and you are taking the position, as we were talking from the beginning, of a head of an institution who has to work within a certain frame of reference, then you would want to say that the person applies the rules of his terms or her terms of reference. Now, in that sense, that is permissible. Now, the issue about, I think we use reasonableness. The issue of reasonableness, therefore, then is another matter altogether. But of course, we all expect that we would act reasonably. But the question is that if you have, if I am bound by a certain rule and regulation, for example, as in the case of the headmistress or the principal, who says, I have a manual for teachers on school attachment, for example. And the manual says that in section A, B, and C, if this occurs, this is the action that has to be taken. I mean, in the right sense of the sequence of the expected actions, the principal will take that action to start with. Subsequently, you can ask about reasonableness. That reasonableness then will rest on the discretion of the person who is administering that particular, let me call it the legal clause of that particular act. So there's a lot of discretion and initiative in this, but it doesn't change that particular statement, which says that according to the rules of the institution, once you get into this situation, this is the action that will be taken against you. And I'm happy he says, before you come into the college, you sign on to this. So once you sign on to this, you say, I accept it, including all the small dotted lines. So again, those are the areas where we have to sit. And I'll repeat that the issue is not that you cannot get pregnant. You can get pregnant. But when you get pregnant within the context of that institution, it is not possible for us to keep you in there. And therefore, we'll give you some break, and then you can reapply. So that for me is the context in which this is going. I mean, if you take this point, for example, now we are dealing with the arena of reasonableness. Within the time frame, should the head be given that liberty to say that, oh, well, I can apply my discretion and allow for some degree of reasonableness and permit the ladies to stay, even though the code of ethics that I'm applying and using for the function of my work says that once you enter into a particular situation, this is the action that has to be taken against you. So it's important to look at it, in all of this, so we don't begin to think that there is a direct adverse infringement on a person's human rights.
But I think just maybe for your information and for the information of viewers, I think this matter has been settled. Judge has taken on a landmark case to court. So there's a precedent. There's one print, but there's a case. It's on a similar, premise, and the High Court has ruled that that action of expelling, excluding, is discriminatory. So, Charles, and maybe with all respect to you and your colleagues, you have no option than to obey the High Court ruling, because the issue of the reasonableness or reasonably, let me use that word, of the code of conduct in terms of certain provisions has been determined, especially the issue of, the excluding. So that boundary has been clarified for you.
Excellent.
Yes. So maybe you, as we go along, we may have to find.
Yes, I think on the basis of that, I would concede that yes, once the Supreme Court has ruled on,
no Supreme Court, High Court. High Court.
You know, everybody's talking about Supreme Court these days. Once the High Court has ruled on the matter, then it settles for the subsequent action. So that one is not an issue. But again, you are looking at the context, and interestingly, I would just plead that ignorance of the rule is not an excuse. But for now, we haven't received that particular order. For us to make the specific changes in the law, in the rules that we have it now. So we will say that yes, once we get the Supreme Court order, we would make the necessary.
But you see, isn't it a bit worrying that?
Oh, I'm the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that one.
Is it not a bit worrying for us as a state to actually write such a rule in our books and defend it? You know, we have F-cube that we are struggling, girl-child education that we are struggling with. And then we have Agri who told us back in the ages that, you know, educate a woman and you educate a family, educate a man and educate. So we have all these things. And we all know because of our cultural norms, it's hard for a girl to go through the system. So a girl goes through the system. Now she even goes to become a teacher so that she can actually impact knowledge onto people. And she's going to bring up a family. And we say, you know what? Go home and come back in a week's time. I mean, in a year's time. Is this something that should even be considered?
But since I said it has been settled, but you see, like I started from the beginning, you have a certain historical context in which some of this is evolved. And we are seeing that as we are moving, like you're saying, you know, the cultural laden prejudices that we have as a nation, I mean, sometimes blurs our vision and our own appreciation of issues. Like you are saying, what is so, I mean, wrong for me to sit in a class with a lady who is pregnant? And so those of us, like said earlier, who had the benefit of educating ourselves outside and elsewhere, the exposure, this is a normal trend. Are we saying that those values that we've all been trying to more or less, I mean, imbibe, especially the positive aspects, should not be universal in its application? So I agree with you. As we move along, these are certain cultural laden, I mean, norms which were there, I suppose. But as we are growing, we are also saying that that doesn't give any carte blanche for people to misbehave. I think GES is, by going by this rule, is, well, has a very good intention to bring order and sanity into the system. But you must draw a line between who is a child, who needs guidance, and who is an adult, but still need to be regulated in a society. And this is where we are. If you ask me, our society is becoming more sophisticated, to some extent westernized. But I'm not saying that because westernized, we have to take those values. We have to preserve the positive aspects of our culture. But as we grow, I mean, when we're growing, who are you to even talk to an elderly person? If you look at what we are seeing on our political landscape, the things that are coming out, we say it's not part of our culture. But we say, it's democracy, is that not it? Openness. But where do you draw the line? Are you going to gag somebody because you think that is non-Ghanaian? So that is where we are now. And this is one of the test cases. But as we're saying, the matter has been resolved. There's a court ruling, High Court ruling on this, which is saying that the extent to which, and to just still give you an insight, Church as an institution has the power to determine as an oversight body what is reasonable, what is discriminatory, what is oppressive.
Charles, why does the GES not frown against a normal university student that's pregnant, but frowns against, after she's gone through university, maybe she wants to go and train as a teacher, and she gets pregnant there, it becomes an issue.
On the university campus.
Let me just sort this out. Under the structure that we have in the education system, you have the Ministry of Education, which is the big oversight body, and then you have the Ghana Education Service that oversees the pre-tertiary education. The pre-tertiary comprises basic and second cycle, essentially.
Okay.
And then now we call it the tertiary level, which begins now from the colleges of education and then upwards. Previously, before the Colleges for Education Act was passed, the colleges of education were under the pre-tertiary education. Now, that should tell us exactly where all of these emanate. Because at the pre-tertiary level, you're dealing with young children. I mean, who are growing and therefore have to be guided and be put within a certain growth program. Now, when people have moved out, and when it was training college, you finish secondary school before you go there. But again, you had that underlying principle that said that because you were training to become a teacher, you are a role model. Therefore, you should be prepared to play a role model's responsibility once you go to school. So some of the basic things that come with how you will prepare the young ones you'll be teaching become part of your training. They were allowed to clean, they were allowed to keep the environment clean. They actually went to went the real mile of ensuring that their dormitories were clean, cleaned their own toilets, laid their beds, swept their compound as part of the basic training so they can imbibe those things in their whole system and impart it onto the children. Now, to answer your question specifically, so the tertiary level of the university is out of our scope of work.
And being pregnant wasn't considered as being a role model?
No, being pregnant in school wasn't considered as a role model. Definitely, you have not, again, we used to say that you have not finished school and you have become pregnant.
Charles, that's the trap. The trap is here because it's a moral issue.
Yeah, that's the point. Because once the moral issue comes in, and once the moral issue
how about being married in school? Because some of these people were married.
At the ages that we manage, we cannot expect somebody in secondary school to be married.
And that's a different contest.
I'm coming to that point. Now, it will be extremely unusual for us, Ghana Education Service, to sit in a school system and allow a girl who is 17 years old to come to school and say, I'm married and therefore I'm going to be pregnant. Totally unacceptable. Now, because the training colleges then were part of the pre-tertiary, they fell into that category where... No, I haven't finished. Yes. So you have... Now they have moved. And even then, they had moved. Yet, because of where they were locked tight into the structure of the system, we had to ensure that they came out as, fine examples. I mean, of course, if you are going to teach children, you won't say that we'll get pregnant in the course of your academic year and then.
So back to the question: those at KVAS who are coming out to teach as teachers.
Yes, those at KVAS who are coming out, and again, you see that is the interesting difference, because the tertiary or the university level was seen as a different level from the colleges of education.
But now the colleges of education are tertiary.
Yes,
so you need to modify.
In fact, in this discussion, my whole discussion ends insofar as I'm looking at this document, and not in terms of how the colleges of education should be managed. Because now they are tertiary institutions, and under my capacity, I do not have any authority, legally to define any rules and regulations for them. But because they have transitioned from the Ghana Education Service, where we put down all of these rules of engagement, they have carried it into their new states.
Okay, so if that
let's hold on. Let me take a quick break, and we'll come back and continue and find out how much would they have just taken to just delete this little phrase, and just now that you're moving on, you've been excluded. And why are they still holding on tight? And I have a press release here from Agogo Presby Training College, which I'll read to you. Very disheartening. We'll come straight back to you. Hello and welcome back to the exciting debate. I have with me Isaac Annan, who's a Deputy Director, Chirag, and then my immediate left is Charles Chega, who's Deputy Director General of GES, and we're just trying to find out, this code that says that if you're training to become a teacher, within that period that you're training in school, whether it's 2 years or 3 years, you should not get yourself pregnant, especially if you are a female. And then we're just trying to find out if indeed it is necessary or not. But while we are talking about that, I have a press release which came in today from, not really, it's 4 ladies from Agogo Presby Training College have drawn our attention to an issue relating to their principal who has forced them to defer their course just because they are pregnant. It goes on to say, we are final year students of Agogo Presby College of Education whose accounts have been blocked by the principal, I would leave the name, just because we are pregnant. The principal first told us to write a letter of deferment even though we have only a month to complete our final exam. When we refused, we were forced by the principal to either write the deferment letter or she would write to sack us. We then agreed to write the deferment letter in order not to be withdrawn from the college. After hearing the news from the Minister of Education that all students with such problems should go to their various schools to register for final exams, we approached the principal on Wednesday, 9th June 2013 to register, but she told us that she would not allow us to register because she had not received any official letter from the minister. She then said that the minister was, what the minister said was a political statement, which was not different from the rules, of the school. We are therefore appealing to you to come to our aid to enable us register to be enabled to write the final exams next month, July. We still remain faithful daughters of the land despite our pregnancies. Thank you. I mean, that is...
Yeah, I mean, it's just what we've been saying, the transition.
So, Charles, I mean, this, I don't know if I should give you a copy of this letter so you can call the school and help them out.
Give me a copy of it. I mean, because again, I'll be with the minister tomorrow and we can discuss this. Again, once the minister orders, I mean, this matter should not even go to this extent. So we would address that hopefully by tomorrow. When I get a copy, the minister would cause that to be reversed. But the whole point is that, again, there is this dilemma that we are in. And let it be understood that the context, or the challenge or the problem is not really about getting pregnant. No. It's important to understand the institutional, as I started pointing out, the institutional rules and a whole range of things. But at this level, one would expect that they be allowed the freedom to get pregnant and do their work. And as I said, even at the GES level, for girls, the young girls who got pregnant for BEC, we don't stop them from writing. We allow them to write the examination. We do not, and we forbid anybody to stop any of those little. I mean, they are even younger, So it is not an issue of the same. But the challenge is this. I mean, once you have a code that you're doing, and I'm happy that we are bringing this into closure with the court order, and it will just corroborate with what the minister will do hopefully tomorrow, and then all of these matters will be brought to
the challenge, like we were saying, that I find Charles and his colleagues having is that the transition from a pre-tertiary situation to a tertiary situation is what is creating a bit the confusion. So if I should say that, but I think going forward, there's a need for this manual to be revisited, taking into cognizance the fact that these are now adults. Not even now adults. If you find an adult in a certain situation, that doesn't mean that adult should not go by the rules. But the rules should be such that it should be within the general rules of the land and should not in any way infringe on the rights of that particular person. Because like I was saying, pregnancy is a normal situation that anybody should find it. Then the question that is always asked, the man who impregnated, he will be sitting in the class, right? Why shouldn't he?
He'll be at work.
Go and babysit.
Yes. So it all has to do with women's rights, how women find themselves in a very disadvantaged position by virtue of where they find their roles in society. This is a biological burden they have to undertake or to, deal with. But at the end of the day, we are supposed to know their circumstances and see how best we can carry them on based on where they find themselves. Otherwise, if you don't take care, you'll be seen as playing.
And I guess that it's also important for us to understand, to help our young girls to understand a certain sense of timing. One lady told me that it's important to plan everything. One would expect that at least 3 years, and for the ages for which these girls are in the college, they are not ages that would delay in any way extremely their biological clock, to the extent that by the time they leave the colleges, they will no longer be able to have children. So the issue.
You're trusting on dangerous words.
These are very active.
You're trusting on very dangerous words.
I'm actually pointing out to the fact that everything is according to plan.
Yeah.
We are not saying that there couldn't be exceptions. There could be exceptions. There could be exceptions. Yeah. But as much as possible, we would appreciate a certain sense of planning, and even for the men who have wives in the colleges to allow some space for them. Because again, let me give you a fine example about this young girl at BEC who got pregnant and had to stop writing at the end of the day. I mean, the question is, imagine that we said, okay, don't write the exam this year. Go home and write. I mean, go home, go and have your baby. We probably would have been drifting close to a kind of a crisis of this nature. But it's important that, our girls are helped, to complete specific cycles in their education. And this one is not because we are not challenging again the point, but it's for those of the husbands to do a little bit of planning to allow their wives or whoever to complete whatever cycle that they have, and then they can get pregnant. So because it's important that you focus on what you're doing, and I know I have may her soul rest in peace. In University of Cape Coast, we had one lady who got pregnant in her final year, and she made the first class. She had a baby and she made the first class. We have fine examples of this nature. Fine, but we are not going to say that should stop anybody. But we still think, and I'm very sure that if she was, may her soul rest in peace again, she was alive and she had the opportunity to advise young girls, she probably won't tell them that, please, you get pregnant and go and write your exam. Yeah. No. Probably Charles, she had
let's digress a little bit.
Yeah.
Miss Benedicta Nana Baini recently, had a forum, and she was telling the ladies how generally the society makes it difficult for them, because normally house chores are done by ladies, and so the boys get to do their homework and get to go to school, and so you realize that even in terms of enrollment, the boys are doing more. But, we know clearly that, if the girls were in school more, all the boys would have been saved.
Yeah.
And then you have, in the Volta region, this teacher who impregnates 11 girls. The girls are allowed to go home. The teacher is allowed to stay on. So we find the girls somehow being disadvantaged with one course or one code or the other. And what's the GES doing so that, because I thought by this time we'll be favoring girls even over boys, so that if a girl got pregnant, you actually send the boy home and keep the girl in school so that the boys will keep their zippers up. But instead, it's the other way around. So
yes, but that's an interesting point. And again, it's difficult to make a clear statement around that.
Let's generalize that. The GES society, we are still not giving girls the preference to go through school.
Yes, because I, from my own personal experience, know of a girl in a school who got pregnant along the line. I don't know who made her pregnant, whether it's a boy in the school or not. Then the girl gets lost, and we try to locate the girl because we didn't know that the girl was pregnant. But the girl just suddenly gets lost. Then suddenly the parents appear in the school and say, we want the girl to come back to school. And we say, oh. So eventually we got to know that the girl was pregnant and was walking around town with her pregnancy. And there is that, for a secondary school girl and that kind of thing, there's this peer pressure and the examples and all of that. Now, the challenge is not putting in rules and points to discriminate against girls. Somehow, invariably, we have a system that frowns on certain types of behavior at certain point. And I know that, many mothers, not the adults, many mothers whose young daughters get pregnant will not be proud to walk them about on the street and go on a stroll in their area with their daughters. So right even in the home setting, you get a certain sense of discrimination, in terms of the amount of space you have to do things. But that does not, deny her any opportunity to do that. But for the time that she is pregnant and she is covertly prevented from all of these things, I don't know how to describe, but the important thing is that she can always come back. But we don't want that situation to happen. And that's why I get back to my issue of let's go through a process of helping our girls to wait, admonishing the boys to put an end to all of these excessive harassments and inducement of our young girls, to put them in situations where they get the unfortunate advantage over girls, and empower our girls literally to say no when it's no.
But okay, before you come in, I'll take a quick break and then we find out whose decision is it? Is it the pregnant woman's decision to say, look, I don't care about the embarrassment, I'm willing to stay, and then I'll take my 1 month, go and give birth and come back? Or is it the school's decision to say, no, you go home and stay home for 1 week, a year before you come back? Stay tuned, we're going to continue. Hello and welcome back. We're talking adults who are training to be teachers but not allowed to be pregnant because that's what it says in the code. They've already signed up to it. Do they have a case or not? But we've argued it out to the point where we're deciding that once you get pregnant in the school, is it your decision to say, listen, my pregnancy is really wearing down on me, so I need to go home? Or I'm fine, I'm fit as a fiddle. I can go through my 9 months in school, so I want to stay. Or is it the school's decision to tell you that, you know what, you're not fit, go home and then come back?
Yeah, that's why I think public officers come in. Who are you to decide for me? Because if I'm sick, you can see my condition, say, okay, go for medical treatment. Definitely, anybody keeping somebody within a certain confine, and you have control over that person. You hold it a duty of care to be sure that the person is in good health. So the question arises, at what stage do you determine that I'm fit to be in school or not to be in school? And that's where the issue about you exercising that power that has been given to you, you must exercise it within a certain legal context. Because if you don't take care, let's say if they decide to go home and come back, like I said, we are not sacking you, but go and come back. Do you know what? The person may not come back. At that stage, what have you done to the person's education? So that's where we are saying that that decision should be left to that adult. But there's a stage where you can see, intents and purposes, you want the best out of the person. And you can see that given this situation, somebody is about 7 months pregnant, say 8 months, so wary. You can say for your own interest, I think it will not be the best for you to even sit in this, because you need certain special care at that stage.
Isaac, would that be a medical advice or would that be a GES?
No, I'm not saying that.
Should it be a medical advice or a headmistress advice?
No, that would be there should be a professional advice from a medical. But you too, you have a duty. You, the person hosting that individual or that group of people, the time that they are there, legally, anything that will happen to them becomes, because you are supposed to provide the necessary congenial environment for them to have a good, living in whatever place they are. So, but I'm saying that given our own experience and practice, somebody is 7, 8 months pregnant, and you see that it's weighing down on the person, you can advise the person in his own interest. That's why most of these institutions will have some infirmaries or whatever, they can give that advice. Because at the end of the day, you should be thinking of the best interest of that person at that particular time, given the vulnerabilities that the person is facing. But I agree with you, the least that the GES should do is to try to dictate to an adult, despite the fact that the rules are there. It's just like I come to my workplace, you are here, multimedia, you know the rules of engagement. But there's a limit to which your chief executive can go as far as dealing with you is concerned. And this is the context in which we are discussing all these things. So that pregnancy should not be seen as, and like for all that I'm seeing now, it's that its own historical evolution where people say that It's not good. Why you are in school and you are pregnant?
Which means you have sex.
Yeah. You have sex.
Yeah.
It's a moral issue, and we are carrying on. So having sex while in school is not the best. But we are saying that given a certain level of students that you deal with, you should know that they are just adults, and you must know how to handle them, not sacrificing discipline. Every society needs discipline to grow. Yeah, but
those are very interesting points. But now I want us to look at the school. In a school, there are laid down regimes of actions and time frames for doing specific things. So the question is, if it depends on you as a pregnant girl to decide that you want to leave, would you require preferential treatment to go through the normal day-to-day routines in the school for which no preferential treatment is given to anybody? Would you want to be treated as a normal person, to be in school? We say, fine. At best, you can put a person in an infirmary. You put a person in an infirmary, and you are there. Classes start at 7. You have to get up at 7. Dining hall is at, let's say, 2. You have to be at 2.
But they do it all the time.
No, when you are pregnant, it is a different situation. But I'm saying that when you are not pregnant, you will go through this normally. When you are pregnant, you get into a certain state which is totally different from what you are from your normal self. But you see, the school processes do not change. The school processes will not recognize your pregnancy.
Which is wrong, Charles.
What is wrong about
Because that person, you are not contemplating that people should be pregnant.
That is why in the school situation, and I'm happy with the point you made, I mean, we would immediately seek a doctor's permission and say, look, doctor, we have a challenge here. I mean, there's a girl who is pregnant. What do we do? Like you said, I mean, if a doctor advises that, look, because of the way you get up at 7, you have to sweep, everybody's making noise, this girl is pregnant, and, she can't cope with
Charles,
the kind of
in your
regime.
office, has a secretary been pregnant before?
Yeah, but my office is not a school.
No, but do they turn up at the time they have to turn up? Like 7 o'clock, do they come to work?
My office is not a school. In the school, you're sleeping in a dormitory. You don't have a room of your own. You have close to about 7 or 8 or 9 people with whom you are sleeping. Everybody, we are friends, we talk, we shout, we scream, we laugh, we play loud music. Yeah. You are pregnant. You want some quietness, you can't get it. I mean, it's a total different environment from my office. My office is a quiet, serene, prayerful environment where you can sit and do everything you can. But not the secondary school.
No. As for the secondary school.
Would that be not your decision as to whether you go into a prayerful mood or you go into an azonto mood? I mean, would it be the school's decision? I mean, who makes a decision as to this environment is comfortable comfortable for me and I can take it, or it's not comfortable for me? And
in terms of what I have, my situation.
Yeah, your situation.
I think, like I've said earlier, that is your decision. You decided to get pregnant. But what Mr. Charles is saying all along is that the school authorities do not hold such a person any extra responsibility. But okay, because we have not even conceived this as something which should be happening in our setting. But I'm saying that going forward, these are realities that we are saying. And we are saying so far as these people remain human beings, like you pose the question, why is that in the work environment or any other environment? Even prisons, pregnant people are given special care. But GES must now be reorienting itself towards a certain direction, that giving a certain group of people, but even people who are even pre-tertiary, if it's so happen that the person becomes pregnant, it's not an outcast.
Let me throw this in.
Yeah.
After you've taken a woman or a lady through this treatment, I mean, this lady's from Mago, if indeed they are able to set their paper and they come through, and now they head an institution, what will be their thinking towards their fellow people? Maybe somebody living with a disability, or another person that's pregnant. I mean, what decision will she take? She said, I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, aren't we bringing them to be too cold?
No, we are not. We are not. We are not. Again, we are not shooting down the moral code. The moral code is there, and whether we like it or not, it will still operate anyway, and it operates in any girl who gets pregnant in school. I mean, she is under a consciential torture because she is, unquote, odd within the environment within which she finds herself. So she goes through her own torture. Now, granted that she has the freedom to decide, I want to stay, I don't want to stay. You stay, but the system doesn't change. Fine. So we add a proviso to our school regulations. In the unlikely event that a girl gets pregnant, these are the things we'll do. At 9 a.m., a doctor will come and take you through. That 9 a.m., your colleagues are in school. They're having classes. Now, so we would reschedule your 9 a.m. session to about 1:30 p.m. Fine, the teachers are willing to come and see and teach you. At that time, you are so pregnant, you are so tired. At 1:30, it's hot, you want to sleep.
No. You're making judgments.
No. I'm giving you scenarios.
You're treating pregnancy as a disease.
No. I'm giving you scenarios. I'm saying that it's not a disease. By 1:30, you are 1:30 even. No. Fine.
They go to the market.
Okay, fine. No, let me finish. Now, 1:30, you want to take a walk. But because you missed the 9 o'clock lesson, all right? I'm talking about a school situation. I'm not talking about people who are at home. In school, we add the clause, in the unlikely event that you get pregnant, these are the things that we will do for you. At 9 o'clock, the doctor will come and see you. Okay?
They don't need
they need that. No.
They don't.
No. If the doctor should come.
It's quarterly or
whatever.
Some don't even take any medication.
That is where the problem is, because you need that antenatal care before you die. But the point is that what I'm trying to point out is that even if the rules are given or you have preferential treatment, there is something that will go against you in terms of the stream of the timing within the school setting. Now, we want to allow you to take the decision, but the system will not wait. Because granted that you have a school of 10 students, we will not, because 1 or 2 are pregnant, begin to change the timetable to make sure that the 2 come in.
Let's hear the human. Let's wrap it up for 30 seconds.
Yeah,
that's
well,
all.
like we're saying,
Wrap it up 30 seconds for me.
Yeah, because we still believe that this is a moral issue. Like he rightly said, the fact that you are pregnant, there's the need for you to be given some special care. The special care will not change the general regime.
Yes.
But like we're saying, if the person has to go to write exam and needs certain things to be provided, or he needs certain assistance, but that will not say that, if exam is going to be 9 o'clock, a pregnant person should be given 10 or 12 o'clock. We've seen from practice that this is not possible. And like you're saying, pregnancy is not a disease, it's not a disability, but it has its own burdens. And those people who go through, we see our mothers, our sisters always, the burdens that they go through. So let's not contrast this work environment and the school environment. They are the same environment.
Thank you very much, guys.
But let me just say that I really miss the presence of a woman in this.
Yes, we tried to reach.
She can share.
So that she supports everything that I'm saying.
We tried to reach Abeni Sam, Executive Director of WILDAP, but unfortunately we couldn't. So in the studio with me to my extreme left is Mr. Isaac Annan, Deputy Director Chirag, and then my immediate left, Charles Chega, Deputy Director General GES. It's been wonderful. And I'm sure we need a part 2 of this, and get a woman in there to actually tell her what it is to be pregnant, and indeed, is it a good idea that, they go home or they stay through the school? And I think it's best that they leave the decision to the woman rather than you decide for her. But my worry is, after you drag somebody through this situation, when they come into a place of authority, what decisions do they then take? Do they then become acceptive and adapt people because that person is living with a disability, the other one is pregnant? Or do they also take the same stand to say, well, you got yourself pregnant, so get out of here until you're fit enough? My name is Nanan Sakwa. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back here to do it all over again.